people have raised fears about health and safety. What are those fears based on?
This is a very interesting question. Essentially, the fears can be boiled down to the actual size and shape of the particles. Because they're so small, they might actually pass through biological barriers in the body. They could be
absorbed through the skin.
Absolutely, but this is certainly one fear. Or breathed in and actually sort of jammed within the areas of the lungs, producing sort of diseases very similar to silicosis.
Yes.
Now that's certainly a concern. Nanotechnology, or the production of nanoparticles, is relatively new. It's a relatively new science. Science operates at the edge of the unknown. At present, there are no overriding fears for the actual sort of that would say, my God, we don't want to use nanoparticles. They're fearsomely dangerous. But one must be careful, because after all, people sort of said 50, 60 years ago that asbestos was perfectly harmless. What is good is that most of the chemical manufacturers, the people who are working with nanoparticles, are aware of this, and there's some seriously good work actually being carried out to actually assess the actual safety of these materials. One problem, however, is the fact there is no, if you like, sort of universally accepted protocol for the actual testing of these materials. There's lots of testing sort of done on sort of zebrafish or individual cells, but the actual sort of how closely these relate to the human body is at best sort of sketchy.
And the nanoparticles exist in nature, don't they?
Nanoparticles are ubiquitous. They are ubiquitous. If you want to produce nanoparticles in large quantities, light a candle.
Yes.
Go to a restaurant. Do some cooking. You'll produce millions and millions of them.
Yes.
We're surrounded by them every day in the forms of dusts, mists, and fogs.
Yeah. So it's not so much the nanoparticles in themselves; it's what those nanoparticles might be made of.
It's essentially it's what they're made of, but it's also shape as well. It's also shape as well. In fact, the sort of long spiky materials might potentially sort of be more dangerous, a la the fears about asbestos. I did sort of read an article about several years ago, after the sort of terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center, that terrorists might cause detonations and in fact actually produce nanoparticles that would harm people. Frankly, any self-respecting terrorist would actually be better served to actually drive around the streets in an old diesel-burning car.
Right, it produces many particles.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Actually, to stand by the road, in heavy traffic, you will breathe in an awful lot of nanoparticles, which are potentially rather unpleasant.